Anyway, before I left, there was one ridiculous event, and it goes pretty much like this. After hiding on a bunch of places, not being present, and you get tired of that at some point. You cannot spend your life doing that. Then I went back to the apartment of my parents where I lived, yes, and it was like 11 in the morning, something like that, and somebody rang the door. And ridiculous moment happens that I go to the door and open the door. And there was a guy from military who was looking for me. I mean, that's so ridiculous. After all those months, even when I was at home in those periods, there was like strict rule that I'm not opening the door. If somebody rings the door, there is either father or mother opens the door, and there is like, I don't know exactly, we already had a story, what they're telling to the military, where am I? Because they couldn't get into the apartment they're looking for me, they just like need to come to the door, ask if they find, then they give you in a hand this letter to join the forces. If they don't find you, they cannot, but they could come day after again and again and again looking at you because that's your address. So we had all that strategy developed how to act in a moment when the doorbell rings, but for whatever fucking reason that time I opened the door and there was a guy asking for me. And the first thing I said, oh, that's not me, that's my brother. And mom, in that moment, she was approaching and she took over the conversation with the guy. In the meantime, I just went to my room and I sat at the chair and I was thinking, what the fuck is wrong with you? For a month you have all this CLA strategy developed, you're struggling in the dark, you're living in 10 different places, just for that, and then you just open the door. So it's kind of, interesting, event that maybe as much as you're prepared and as much as you are planning things, there can always happen something that slips the plan. What was the other thing?
It's about the
barbecues on the roofs.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I wasn't there. I was already in New York in '99 when the NATO liberators sent their liberating forces to liberate my homeland. Okay, so. But since I was in a contact with a bunch of people at the time, and really, really interesting and nice stories. There are a bunch of nice stories. I don't want to get in the horrors of what people were telling me, how they were perceiving what was happening, how they were running in a shelter with the kids and they didn't have things to eat, and I can go over that, but something that kind of stays apart from this kind of narrative, there were nice things that were happening, beautiful things actually. One of those was that as the rule was that when the airplane were coming, which was during the night, then all the lights and all electricity in the city was shut down so that the airplanes cannot see where the city is or whatever. But that was the thing that they were doing. They were shutting down the lights, so everything would stop. Stop in a sense that, things that use electricity didn't work anymore. And since over there, bunch of people, let's say most of the people, have those big freezers for a meat, where they, when it's a season of getting the meat, meaning when they're killing the pigs in the villages around, when that season, whatever it is, happens, then they would go and buy the whole thing and then cut it and in pieces and keep it to have it during the winter in those freezers. And since there was no electricity, it was a question how long that meat will stay eatable in those freezers. And after the first week, second, third week, when people got tired of running every night in the shelters, they just kind of, in a weird way, started relaxing and started organizing parties on the roofs. So those meat, if you don't eat it, it's gonna get rotten anyway. So let's organize the party, use all the meat, organize party on the roof, and invite all the neighbors. So that's what they were doing. They were making barbecues on the roofs, eating meat, drinking rakia, and watching the airplanes that are flying over the city. So that was fucking beautiful. And of course, for the first time, there were people, as it is fact in a civilization, you can live in a same building with 200 other people that you, for years, even decades, not having clue what's in their fucking minds. And this was a moment where everybody was in the same shit. There was no masks, and people were, I don't know, I cannot say they were enjoying it, but they were together in a real sense of the word, and they were sharing everything they had at the moment and experiencing at the same time this thing that might kill them in the next 3 seconds. So I didn't personally experience it, but this kind of this story is like really, really something that, I can relate in a sense to that, and it's nice to kind of put yourself in that, even in imaginary way, yeah. Put yourself in that kind of those kind of circumstances, that kind of setup, and see how you feel.